selected by qualifying times or by trial. The current system for selecting the New Zealand athletics team for the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games is by way of qualifying times rather than by a competitive trial. The reason why I'm talking to you about this today is because of New Zealand's failure in these types of events in recent years compared to the success New Zealand experienced in the 1960s. Currently in New Zealand, our athletes need to qualify for these teams by reaching a certain time or distance. I believe that for field events and sprints, which are distances 400 metres and under, using a qualifying time or distance is okay. This is because these events are generally non-tactical. That is, the person capable of running the fastest or throwing the furthest generally wins. However, in longer running races, it is often the person with the strongest finish that wins. This is because factors such as wind and jostling greatly reduces a frontrunner's chances of winning in a major athletic competition where there is little variance between the athlete's abilities. A classic example of this is Sir John Walker's Olympic victory in 1976. Although capable of running 3:32 for the 1500 metres, the race came down to tactics and he won in 3:39. Interestingly, a runner in New Zealand at the time that had a personal best performance of 3:39 wouldn't have even qualified for the Games. For distances 800 metres right through to the marathon, I believe that trials should be run, because there is more to winning a race than how fast you can run. The way athletes can perform in a race is a lot more important than the times they can run. In the past, we have had athletes in our Olympic and Commonwealth Games teams that have qualified in very fast times, but at these games they can never deliver their best performance. Some have even run up to a minute slower than their personal best time, depending on the distance of the race. We have also had athletes that perhaps don't quite manage to qualify for the Olympics, but they can run very well in the pressured situation of a race. This is because qualifying times are generally very tough to achieve. Therefore, the athlete has to train very hard and reach peak performance just to achieve the time. Unfortunately, what goes up must come down, and their running drops away before they even get to the Games. This is because an athlete's ability to hold peak performance is only for a short amount of time. It was recognised by famous distance coach Arthur Lydiard back in the 1960s that training needed to be organised such that the peak performances came at the right time. His athletes, including Peter Snell, were often well below their best during the build-up to the Games. However, they were able to run their best times at the Games. I heard on television on Sunday the 22nd of July on a program called The Golden Hour how Peter Snell, ranking just 25th in the world, managed to improve his best time through the heats, semi-final and final, the eventual win of the Olympics. How often do we hear about this sort of thing now? So which is more important, being able to run a fast time or being able to run well in a race? A lot of other countries are already using this technique and have been hugely successful at track and field. These countries include Kenya, Ethiopia, the United States and the United Kingdom. I believe another way to help New Zealand to perform better overall in these types of games is to allow younger athletes to compete, even if they are not quite fast enough, because younger athletes can gain experience and do well for our country when they are older. Arthur Lydiard used to coach a group of young athletes, including Peter Snell and Murray Halberg, who were just a bunch of keen local runners. It was interesting during the Golden Hour television documentary that Murray Halberg had competed in the 1956 Olympic Games in the 1500 metres. Although very admirably achieved reaching the final, he was seen as a failure in the eyes of the New Zealand public. However, the experience he gained from the 1956 Games benefited him greatly for the 1960 Olympics, where he was able to cope with the New Zealand public pressure and win the 5,000 metres. The Institute of Sport in Australia have proven, based on an increase of medal count per head of population, that athletes can be made and not necessarily born. At the Games, you need a strong will to win. You can't measure a will to win by a qualifying time. How do you measure a will to win? By a race. In the end, I believe that if we New Zealanders change our way of choosing representative teams, we will be a lot more successful in Olympic and Commonwealth Games, and athletes will get a also strongly believe that if we give our younger athletes a proper chance, they can perform well once they reach their mid-20s. So what do you think?